Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Hope someone sobered up. Who that? That is none other than Mr. Budanov, the chief of the military intelligence of the Ukraine forces. So this Budanov, the guy without an arm, I suspect, he is the one who says that Ukraine must negotiate, otherwise it risks existence. Finally, something that you should have been thought about in 2021. Not now, after so many people died, a distracted, destroyed country, and so on. That's the first one. And as a coincidence, the Ukrainians provide in the same day an article telling us then, let me just read it for you, poll exclusive to Ukrainska Pravda, half of Ukrainians support compromise to end war. Now, I don't think this is a coincidence, it's an order. No coincidences like this. It's an order, and I will show you. Here, let's start with the first one. And I don't care about the coincidence, I care about what Budanov come into saying. New Voice of Ukraine, today, January 27th, 2025. Budanov says, Ukraine needs negotiations or risks existence. Finally, and you know who this guy is? This is Taras Shevchenko, the Ukrainian's national poet. I have a big volume over there with poems from Mr. Taras Shevchenko. Anyway, so this is it, my friends. Ukraine's existence could be threatened if, quote-unquote, serious peace talks do not begin by the summer. What does that mean? That means you are losing, so you gotta make a compromise. The country's intelligence chief, Kirill Budanov, said during that closed meeting in the parliament. New Voice's sister publication, Ukrainska Pravda, these guys, wrote on January 27, citing an anonymous participant, snitch, or how do you call them, whistleblower. Representatives of the General Staff of the Ukraine Armed Forces and Budanov were invited by the parliament and I thought the faction leaders to report on the current situation on the front in order to understand the real state of affairs. And I'm quoting, if there are no serious negotiations by summer, then very dangerous processes for the very existence of Ukraine may start. Budanov said with a cold smile while asked how much time Ukraine has. This guy right here. The information published in the media, both domestic and foreign, and I'm quoting, does not correspond to reality at all, end quote, said the head of the National Security and Defense Council Center for Countering Disinformation, Andriy Kovalenko, commenting on possible timeframes and date for the end of the war. Heavy fighting continues on the front line of Ukraine's national security sector, must remain strong and focused on defense. That means this guy is about to go. I don't know if to London or just dismissed right now. I suspect, my friends. I don't have any information about that. Next one. But this is correlated in the same date that today, Monday, January 27th. Poll exclusive to Ukrainska Pravda. The ones that broke the news on this one, these guys just report what Ukrainska Pravda reported. So the same says, poll exclusive to Ukrainska Pravda. Half of Ukrainians support compromise to end war. It's not between these two. It's between this guy and NATO, which is the United States of America. According to a December 2024, but they tell us now in January, almost February, poll conducted by Ukrainska Pravda, 50% of the Ukrainians favor a compromise solution involving the leaders of other countries to end the war, but with significant security guarantees for Ukraine. According to a December poll by the sociological company Sochis, which is available to Ukrainska Pravda, the number of Ukrainians who would like immediate negotiations and an end to the war has recently increased sharply. Thus, 50% of respondents support the search for a compromise solutions involving the leaders of other countries to end the war. Nah. You see, why don't you say like this? The title. Stick to the title. Half of Ukrainians support compromise to end war. That should have been the question asked. But now, the question is involving leaders, the leaders of other countries to end. Okay, the leaders of North Korea, Iran, China, and Bangladesh. How about that? And Zimbabwe, my friends. No? They don't have that in mind, I guarantee you that. So, also the number of those who support freezing the war and ending combat actions along the current line of contact has increased from 8% to 20% over the year. My point, they're sick of war. They've been seeking. First, maybe it was like the First World War. You remember the First World War? I've been there, not. But there were reports saying that the people, the baboons at that time, some of them were going towards thinking of happiness to, to solve the problems between the Austrian-Hungarians and Serbs. The Germans were going to war singing, according to, okay? They were happy to solve the problem finally. I think there were some in Ukraine who were happy to finally smack the Russians in their ass. Why? I know that for a fact. I spoke with many Ukrainians. Now, many is not 100 Ukrainians. That's not necessarily the majority, obviously. But I know very good Ukrainians, very close Ukrainians, who I've known them for decades. When they talked about the Russians, it was like the devil, or the Poles, for the same matter. They never liked the Poles and the Russians. Didn't have much problem with the Romanians or Hungarians or the Slovaks or the Czechs or the Germans. No, the Poles and the Russians. The Russians and the Poles, they had different names for these guys. Not different name, different adjectives they used for. They were not the same adjectives. The Russians were called in a certain name, in a certain way, and the Poles were called in a different names, but both derogatory, very derogatory. It doesn't mean that's the general sentiment, but I guarantee you there were some in Ukraine that celebrated what happened with the help when they saw the baboons in the West using our resources to fight the Ruskies. They said, now is the time. Now is the time to pay them back for everything the Russians did to us. I know that for a fact. It doesn't mean, as I said, that there's a general rule, but those were the patriots. I'm talking about nationalists. Yeah, Ukrainian nationalists. Can you believe it? Well, I was involved, but anyway, move on. So, my friends, involved not like, drinking, talking, not, So anyway, here is, my friends, Budanov agrees that these negotiations of risks existence. What does that mean, risk existence? So if we don't agree with the Russians, because the Russians are coming over, he looks back, the West is fatigued of this. Not the banks, not the military-industrial complex, or the energy sector in the West. They're not fatigued. Why? They are not fatigued of shoveling the money in their banking accounts. No. They're not fatigued. The population is fatigued. And you can push people to a certain garbage to a certain extent. You can fool people sometime, but not all the people all the time, as I said. And what's his name? Abraham Lincoln supposedly said. You can fool some people sometime, but not all the people all the time. So the same is here. But they don't have to. In a democracy, you don't have to fool all the people all the time. Just some people sometime, and it's enough. That's enough. And they're succeeding. That's why they love democracy. Whenever they talk about democracy, it's a stake. That's the only way they win. They control other factions in the society that disagree with their racket. They baboon the imbeciles with their media, with the operatives, and that's it. Enough to have them vote. Riled up with fear, they will go and vote, and they will outvote you and I, who are the geniuses. Anyway, so that's a good confirmation that Ukraine knows is losing. People don't want to fight for the Zelensky Steins and whomever pushed them to war. The guys that had, let's go, they will be on the front, but they are not like this many. They're going to go like this. And it's always like this. Who said that? An army doesn't fight on an empty stomach. I think it was Napoleon Bonaparte. So once you start hurting you, more people say, okay, wait, time out, let's stop. The same, as I said, when or if the Russians are capable of attacking the three pillars of the Western garbage, which are the banking system, military-industrial complex with arms manufacturing companies, and the baboons in the defense department, which is offense department, and then you got the guys in the energy industry. When the Russians are going to be able to just smack them a little bit, not strangle them or poke them in the eye, no, just a little bit of flick, these guys will say, they will tell their baboon politicians, they will tell their media that they own, to start propagandizing the baboons into supporting the opposite overnight. Why do you think these two articles came in the same day, in the 17th and the 27th and 27th? What do you think? Do you think it's a coincidence? No, they support this. They pushed the button, turn on the little, how do you call it? Whatever it's called. Button you push. Switch or click. Switch it, turn it on into, now we need to push these guys. When we are going to negotiate with the Russians, they will say, yeah, negotiate, yeah, and sounds like a win. And when actually it's a lose. You lost territory, you lose people, you're going to lose your statehood probably, you lost a lot of friends, and you won what? What exactly did you win? You're going to be occupied, if the Russians allow you, occupied by one of the two. The Americans or the Russians. You like that? You want to be occupied by the United States of America? Okay, if you want to be occupied by the United States of America, I send you to Iraq to see what's going on, to Afghanistan, even to Hungary, even to Romania, even to other countries, to Poland, to the Baltic states. Those are occupied countries. See how they are? Yeah, you're probably going to eat a little bit better. You're going to get a little bit fatter, but you're going to be in your cage. But fatter. He's going to feed you. The elites in the United States of America with the 3 pillars, they're going to feed you, but they're going to make you work and shut the fuck up. And you're going to be a little bit fatter, but not free. But on the other hand, look at the animals. Domestic animals versus animals in the wild. And you rarely, I don't think you don't see fat animals in the wild. You don't see them. But domestic ones, they're fat. But you depend on me to give you food. I'm the peasant or whomever, I'm the farmer who's going to feed you. I'm going to cut you this winter. And I'm going to make some good sausage out of you, little pig. Without me, you're dying. You're fatter. You live a good and safe life. But outside, a boar has to fucking fight for its survival and so on. So the same here. The Westerners are doing better, but they are in cages. You want to be like that? I don't. That's not my style. Thank you very much for being with me again today. So wait. These guys are ready to negotiate, a little bit too late. The Russians will impose, they will not negotiate. And Trump has no trumps in his sleeves. Why? What is he going to do? Sanction Russia again? Go ahead. This is going to affect us and the Russians. And the Russians have BRICS. What do you have? The same dying, old whore Europe? Is that what the Americans have? The old whore Europe that nobody wants. That's what we're going to have. Who's going to produce for you? The BRICS countries? The developing countries? Who's going to produce for you? You make shit. What do you make? Weapons. All right, thank you very much. Eat your weapons. See how that works. I'm going to have for dinner a bullet. Can you make it a little bit softer next time? Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.